What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Friday, April 26, 2024. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil for episode 279. Phil, happy third year anniversary once again. Our new logo was released on Tuesday. That was the nice surprise we were trying to let everybody know about coming out. I hope everybody really enjoys it. Phil worked very tough on it and very hard on it, I should say. And then our new trailer came out last week, and then our 3-year anniversary episode came out on Wednesday. So it's been a very busy week for us, but it's a big, momentous occasion, turning 3 years old for the show, entering our 4th year now. It's pretty impressive how far we've come and how much further we want to go.
Yeah, I think especially with kind of a lot of, we'll say, momentum right now, even though you don't love momentum in sports, that's all right. But with a lot of what we're doing right now, some of these smaller and bigger changes we're making to the show and how much it's grown over 3 years, I mean, it's just great for us to see that we're still growing and have room to grow for sure. We are nowhere near where we'd like to be, but the fact that it is still getting better. I mean, even on our own end, behind the scenes, production wise, we're making some changes and trying to get things a little better. Like you said, getting a little bit more professional with the logo. It's just good to see us continue to move forward. And happy birthday to us. We are, I don't know, I feel like that's still toddler. Is that toddler or toddler's 3? I don't know.
I'm not kid.
I don't know.
Ish, so I have no idea.
We should be
would
walking.
Assume
We'll
so.
say that. We should be walking.
Yeah. There's like 3-year-old preschools and stuff, so we're
Right,
probably starting school pretty soon.
We're not running yet, for sure. We're still
running and falling.
Yes,
I think we're
not stable.
Got a lot of brush
we'll
burns
put it that way.
Yeah,
we're not.
Yeah. But along with the new logo and the new trailer and the 3-year anniversary episode and all the stuff we're doing behind the scenes, and we've been fielding a few questions about, hey, can we buy merch and stuff like that? All we can say is it's getting worked on, and stay tuned. Like we're not in the initial stages, but we're also not in the final stages of it. But there will be stuff along the lines coming down the wire, and they will be available, and we will for sure be able to advertise it and put it out there more. And I know Phil's really the leading force behind pushing the idea of possible merch coming out, and it's on its way. It's on its way. It probably isn't going to be ready by the end of the Bandits season, and definitely won't be ready if they lose this coming weekend. But it will be ready when it's ready. That's all I'll say. But along with all this new stuff and, big news and everything coming into our 4th year, I'm in the same room, but I told you guys over our private chats that we talked about a lot on our Wednesday episode that we, the special, that I was going to be making this office/studio more studio-ish, and it's not great because I was rushed, so I'm still fine-tuning stuff, but I got like fun stuff over my right shoulder. I got jerseys on the wall. I have our logo, brand new logo above my head right here, flashing on the TV. So it's getting a little bit more high-tech over here at the PK studio apartment. It's not really an apartment, it's a house.
Yeah, I don't think my setup's going to change too much anytime soon. I'm sure it could use some kind of maybe summer upgrade of some sort. I'm looking at it in the background, but more importantly than anything, which is not going to happen anytime soon, sadly, I could use an actual desk instead of this makeshift. I do have like I don't know, I guess we'll say really old kind of computer desk with a pull-out keyboard tray. It's not all that comfortable, and I've had it pretty much forever. And then I have this really pretty terrible kind of collapsible desk thingy table only next to it that the computer sits on. It's not at all professional. It looks pretty terrible, and the functionality of it is miserable. But someday we'll get an actual desk in here.
I have a desk. I'll send a picture to you after this, and if you want it, you can have it. It's just sitting in the spare bedroom, so I upgraded. I have a nice.
So I just get your old desk,
L-shaped desk. Oh yeah, that's how it works. Hand-me-downs. But if you have a desk that Phil can use, you can let us know on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective. Yeah, not as good as the transition as Pat had on Wednesday's episode, but it's pretty stinking good. On X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe or follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. I know Apple still has our old logo. It's in the process. I was an idiot. Forgot to update a specific thing. It's good on Spotify. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Phil's article dropped on Tuesday. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the day of the week. Dropped on Tuesday talking about the Bandits thrashing of the Vegas Desert Dogs on Tuesday. And then my article dropped on Thursday. Now the graphic, it is not their seeding. It is not the final scores. It is my prediction for what the scores will be. And if you read the description of the post and you read the article, you would have known that. And that's all I got to say about that. Look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. Phil, this whole episode, and I'll break it down really quick. We got a hiring for the Buffalo Sabres. We got the BSC nominations for the Buffalo Sabres, and then we got to preview the Bandits versus Georgia Swarm first round do or die and go home playoff game, round 1 coming up. But I did not have this happening. And in the press conference last week, Kevin Adams said that he was going to be working as fast as possible to get a new head coach in place. I thought we said on the previous show that we had a few candidates that we were interested in, and I mentioned this one that they ended up hiring, Lindy Ruff, brought him back, rehired, 2-year deal. I thought that if they wanted to try to be that cup-winning team down the road, a Craig Berube or taking the shot on Rod Brindamore was the correct decision. If they wanted more of a transitional coach that would just bring fans and put their butts back in the seats and give the team more hope, it would be Lindy Ruff. And they did just that. He's been a part of the Sabres every single decade they've been in existence. The amount of games he's coached between regular season and career, 1,266. He's got 935 career wins, which is tied 4th all time. Jack Adams finalist in all 3 spots, including winning one here with the Buffalo Sabres in 05-06. Adams worked with him on the coaching staff in 11-12 and then part of 12-13 until he was fired. I have to say this, Phil. I was 6 when he was hired the first time. I was 21 when he's fired. And I'm 32 now. So it's just ridiculous how much time Lindy Ruff's been a part of this organization. I don't hate the hiring, but I don't love it. And I don't know your feelings on it either yet.
Yeah, the same. Ridiculously conflicted, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Taking like I don't like the nostalgia aspect of any of it, and
right.
It's great that he's been a part of our organization for a really long time. I'm not saying that I have anything against him. I know he still lives in Buffalo. Like, he's a huge part of the Buffalo Sabres, whether he was here or not. Like, that's all fantastic, but I don't care about the past anymore because it's been 13 years since they've been in the playoffs. So just talk to me about now. Like, what are you going to do? I know he said, there's been a lot of quotes being thrown around about him being very strict and, going to bring structure to the team and everybody accountability, and all that's great. And looking at the more recent Lindy Ruff in the NHL, I mean, before he was fired, the Devils did have, I think it was the most points they've ever had in a season, if that's
franchise
correct.
History. Yep.
Right. So I don't know. That sounded weird given some of the, oh my God, sorry. Given that they had Brodeur for a long time, who was really, really good. So that sounded wrong in my head. But I mean, just knowing that he did that, 2 seasons ago, I mean, the modern day Lindy Ruff can still coach, can still take a young team like the Devils were, and get something out of them. So that part of me is excited. I could honestly care less about the nostalgia aspect, or, part of it. I like it and it's fun, but I want to win and be in the playoffs. So if he can do that, that'd be great. Like you said, the big thing for me, I guess, is the 2-year deal is nice. If they got him for 4, 6, 8, whatever, with these really long deals they've been giving coaches. I would not have been thrilled with that. If he's going to be a transition coach, I would assume in a weird way they're still not for this year or even next year, but I would assume they are actively kind of keeping an eye on free agent and head coaches in 2 years and trying to figure out, who's going to be the actual coach. And that's the weird thing about it, right? Like exactly what you said, like he's going to hopefully take the Sabres to the next level, which will be playoffs. But do we think he can take them to a Stanley Cup? Probably not. But is the team ready for that step in the next 2 years? Probably not. I mean, they have shown flashes of being a really good team that can compete with the top teams in the league, but there's other times they just, crash and fail miserably. So I don't know. It's I don't know. I'm very, like you said, don't love it, don't hate it. I feel like we're just stuck still. I hope he can get them to playoffs, but I guess that's what we're looking for, right? I mean, it's just getting them over this 13-year gap, getting some excitement, like you said, butts back in the seats, keisters, as we like to say on this show, back in the seat. And I think that'll happen. And I hope he can bring something out of this team, and maybe this restored little bit of hope will also make them spend some money in the off season to actually bring some players in to help this team. That would be another step. But I mean, overall, like we've said a few times, I didn't expect them to fire Granato at all. So this is a step in the right direction, even if it's not necessarily the greatest step in the right direction. It's better already than I thought they would do this entire offseason. So, I mean, for the very low expectation I have of this team right now, I guess it got a little bit better.
Yeah, I think this is just a hire to get them over that hump and back into the playoffs. If after 2 years, they make an Eastern Conference final run, which is unheard of, then I can see them re-upping. I don't know. And even when they were interviewing him and talking to him, he sounded like he wasn't sure if he still wanted to be involved in hockey and being brought back to the Buffalo Sabres. And, I think this is a hire that a lot of people saw coming. And if you didn't see it coming, I think a lot of people thought it was possible. The biggest thing that I'm not even mad about, it was kind of just a little bit more annoying than, because nothing surprises me with this organization anymore. It's why didn't they take more time and interview more people? And I know Kevin Adams can talk until he's blue in the face and say that he interviewed double-digit candidates. You don't interview double-digit candidates in a week. Like, that process takes a very long time. I think he had it in his head that Lindy Ruff was the right hire. He might have made a few calls around the league to say, hey, would you have any interest in coming to be the Buffalo Sabres head coach? And maybe all of them were saying no, because, this team has some pieces that are very nice, but 13 years is a very big drought. The amount of times they've flipped head coaches is a lot. It's not a very desirable place to coach. So you get a coach that has the nostalgia, whether you like it or not. He knows what it's like to, and knows what it takes to win here. Not the big, Stanley Cup, but he knows how to win here. That's just my biggest thing is it seems like this was a rushed decision. And I know Lindy Ruff has all the numbers, and if you take out his history with the organization and you just look at the numbers and say, hey, you just hired a coach that's got the 4th all-time coaching victories, and he was a Jack Adams finalist in all 3 locations he's ever been, you would probably jump at that decision. But for me, it's just more like you can't ignore the history as much as you want. It's there. And that's the most annoying part, is they just didn't do a correct coaching search again. And that's what happened when Terry Pegula, who, mind you, we want him to talk, but then he talks, and I remember, my God, he should never be behind a microphone, because this man cannot speak whatsoever. And me, I flub everything, but he just he's a terrible public speaker, like god awful. And God forbid he has to take 1 or 2 tough questions. He got off that stage real quick, but that's an off-season topic. But it reminded me of when he hired Kevin Adams. They fired Jason Botterill, and the next day Kevin Adams is in charge, or maybe the same hour Kevin Adams is in charge. They didn't do a correct GM search. That's the biggest frustration for me, is that it doesn't seem like they actually looked around the league to hire a coach besides just, hey, this is the one we want, let's go get him.
And maybe exactly what you said, though, is kind of what they're hoping for. I agree. Number one, I don't think they did a great job with that. And like you said, just why. And with my thought of the Sabres not trying to get rid of Granato, because I really didn't expect them to, I have not paid attention to what teams out there are looking for head coaches. So I don't really know, would Lindy have gone to anybody else, or was it a coach that, like kind of what you said, that he wasn't sure if he really wanted to continue with hockey? So would it have been one of those situations like, hey, we're going to keep you on the back burner. It's either us or nothing, it sounds like, for you. So we can kind of take our time, and we know we have you as an option. And if we can't find anything else, we can't find anything else. So that part's a little weird to me. And I don't know what other teams are looking for coaches. So I don't know how quickly other teams are mobilizing for coaches, because I really just didn't pay attention to the coach firings or search at all, because I assume Granato will be back. But maybe kind of what you said is what they're thinking, which I think is giving them too much credit. But if Lindy can take these next 2 years, take this team and make them even a little bit better, erase that 13-year drought over their head, get them to playoffs, maybe this destination looks better for a head coach down the line in 2 years. Maybe he can prove like, hey, this team is all here. The talent's here. They just need somebody to lead them correctly. And, in the next 2 years, who knows how the young guys perform? Who knows who they bring in? So maybe over the next 2 years, he can just turn this as a destination to be and turn it over to a head coach that's like, all right, I see the potential in this team like that. I don't have to worry about the 13 years. Hopefully, my goodness, they make playoffs in the next 2 years. But if he can erase that drought, I think that makes it all the more a desirable place to be in general. And not only that, but like proving that this team can make playoffs with the talent that they have. I think maybe in 2 years, more teams will be reaching out to the Sabres wanting to be a head coach if he can really turn it around and show that this roster has some potential, this team has some potential, and you don't have to worry about the drought hanging over your head as a brand new coach for this organization.
So he's walking in with a 13-year drought. They haven't made playoffs since he was the head coach. So he's got a lot to kind of take over and try to right the ship. But it will be interesting to see how the next 2 years progress. And if I'm Terry Pegula, I am not giving any head coach an extension until the last year of their deal. And even then, 100%. I would probably wait until the offseason. So he's paying a lot of coaches not to be here anymore. But let's go and start our third annual BSC Awards nominations for the Buffalo Sabres. Phil, this one was very difficult to not only pick a winner, but pick even nominees for these awards. They finished 39, 37, and 6 for 84 points. The nominees for the BSC MVP, and you will have to watch the Friday show next Friday to hear the winners. These are strictly the nominees for these awards. BSC MVP for the Buffalo Sabres: Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, Rasmus Dahlin, Alex Tuch, and JJ Peterka. Last year's winner was Tage Thompson.
Are we waiting until we announce the winners to go over all of these players a little bit, or are we going over nominees and then going over the winner in detail next time?
It's up to you. I don't really have a lot to talk about on any of these players because it was such a letdown season. I think obviously UPL is the clear front winner and the front runner, I should say, for this award. But also you got a guy like JJ Peterka who kind of took his game to the next level and was one of the few players that actually outperformed what he did last year. And I think Alex tried. And I think Alex Tuch's just like kind of player just to toss in there with Rasmus Dahlin. I think this is in my opinion, without knowing the winners yet, because those are in an envelope in the vault, not to be open until next week. But I think it's producer Pat has him. He's got to drop him off next week before we get him. But I think it's a clear cut UPL or JJ Peterka for this victory.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, pretty much all these, I'll probably just let you roll through them because there's not a ton to say, and it was difficult not only coming up with nominees for a lot of these, but not trying to have too many repeat nominees, because I noticed for mine it was the same 2 or 3 players over
Yep.
and over and over doing the same thing, because they were, there were 2 or 3 good players on the entire team that actually had good, consistent seasons, and the rest of them were pretty much letdowns from last year. So it was tough. It was tough coming up with these, but I will let you continue roll.
Yeah, so the next award is the Mr. D. It is the top defenseman for the team. The nominees are Rasmus Dahlin, Owen Power, Henry Jokiharju, and Bo Byram. Last year's winner was Rasmus Dahlin. I think Bo Byram has the potential, and I think what you're looking at here is a lot of younger pieces. You got Henry Jokiharju, who's coming in as an RFA. Will he be back next year? Will they trade his rights to another team? And then you got like the top tier number 1 overall picks in Rasmus Dahlin and Owen Power. It's there's a lot of talent here, but a lot of players that underachieved this year.
Yeah. I mean, Dahlin, I think, is really exciting that he's been very consistent and he hasn't really dropped off at all, unlike the rest of the team, as we just mentioned. So even in a bad year for the entire team, and a lot of these players had career years and then did not even come close to repeating that the next year, it's good to see Dahlin have career years and then at least come, approach very similar to the next time. And seeing him on the ice, he seemed like one of the players that was always frustrated, even if it was 3-2 or it was 8-2. He seemed frustrated by pretty much every goal that he was on the ice for, so that was good. But Owen Power, I think, took a nice step forward. Jokiharju had a monster bounce back. I know I'm pretty sure you were not a fan of him last year.
I was OUT.
Yeah, and then Byram was just kind of fun to see him this year. I mean, even when he came in, just the immediate energy that he injected into this team was really exciting to see, and I think he did a good job not having, just being tossed into a team that was struggling toward the end of the season, going from a playoff team to the Sabres. I'm sure it was a little bit mentally tough, but good to see him kind of have the energy he did as soon as he got on the ice.
So the next award is the Bounce Ball. It is the Bounce Back Season Award. The nominees are JJ Peterka, UPL, Jordan Greenway, and Henry Jokiharju. Last year's winner was Casey Mittelstadt with his major bounce back year. I think here you got UPL, who, after seeing what he did this year and after all the words I said about him, just, if he succeeds somewhere else, do it. And I was dead wrong about that one. JJ Peterka, we already mentioned him. And then you already mentioned Jokiharju as well. But Jordan Greenway kind of bouncing back and being that, lower tier player. I think he's more of a 4th liner than a 3rd liner that they were playing. But I thought he had a nice season in his first full season as a Buffalo Sabre.
Yeah, him for me was about seeing what he could do, like exactly what you just said, in a full season with the Sabres. He had a pretty decent time since he got traded here. He had, some sparks where you're like, okay, this is what we could possibly see out of a player like this. But having him do it for a full season, look good, and be that physical defensive forward, but also have a little bit of ability to play with the puck and get some points was really good to see. He's probably one of your better bottom 6 forwards on the entire team, and he looked really good again this year.
So, Phil, before we finish up the awards here, let's go over our first sponsor, Tap That Tap Room.
Tap That Tap Room is at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda, New York. They are Buffalo's first women-owned self-pour bar where you can go and try as little or as much of their 30 consistently rotating taps. They have a wide variety of ciders, sours, seltzers, beers, and malt beverages. PK, tell them what kind of events they got.
Yeah, so if you listen to the reel we put out on Wednesday, we went over a lot of the events that they have coming up. They currently have their NFL draft party going on right now as we're recording. So sorry you missed that one, but there are more events that you can still go to. Friday, live music with Kevin White. That's starting at 7 p.m. And if for some reason you will not be down at Bandit Land, maybe you couldn't get tickets, maybe you just didn't want to deal with the traffic, maybe you just rather drink for cheap, Tap That Tap Room is the way to go to watch the Bandits playoff game at 7 p.m. There will be giveaways. So if any of these perk your interest or you want to see what else they have, you can check out their Facebook page for all of their posted events. Phil, let's bounce back into this one. You got it, kid. It is the top rookie, Ryan Johnson, Zach Benson, Lucas Ruzak, and Yuri Kulik. Phil, I think It's between Benson and Johnson, but I think the clear favorite here is Zach Benson. I combined the two names.
So you came up with a new player. I would love
There you go.
me some Ryan Benson. Solid two-way player. I mean, Ryan Johnson kind of already is a two-way defenseman, but I would love some Ryan Benson action. This one was tough because not a lot of rookies on this team, despite how incredibly young they are. I mean, we had to throw Kulik in there, and he played, I believe, one game. So
one game.
Pretty tough. And then even Ryan Johnson, who did have a really good season. You mentioned that you liked when he was up there. You were hoping he would stay, and then he went back down. I think next year, hopefully, will be a good, solid breakout year for him. I think he proved that he belongs in the NHL. He was one of their more consistent forwards. I don't mind him getting a little bit more development through the AHL while the team is struggling and not going to make playoffs. That's fine. Go get him some ice time, have a good time in playoffs. So good to see him overall developing. But with the huge, there was a really long time with Ryan Johnson. Was he going to sign? Was he not going to sign? What was he going to do? He was probably the most recent big one that we were really, really, really keeping an eye on. And there was I don't know, would you say 50-50 shot of him not joining the team and wanting to test free agency instead? It just did not seem, for a long time, it did not seem like he was a for sure going to come to the Sabres. But with the way he played in the NHL and on the Sabres this year, I'm really glad that he signed. I think he's going to be a solid young defenseman. But Zach Benson had just a wildly good year. And honestly, it's really impressive. He even made the team as an 18-year-old forward, pretty much a kid. As you said, the title of the show is You've Got a Kid, and he is absolutely a kid. But to beat out some other, younger players that are a little bit older than he is to make the NHL roster and not have to go back to juniors was impressive. But the way he handled himself was also really impressive throughout the whole season.
So this next award should be pretty quick. Crease captain. It is the top goalie. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, Eric Comrie, and Devin Levi. Last year, I think we had 4 or 5 goalies in this one. Last year's winner was Devin Levi. Phil, it would be absolutely shocking. My jaw would be on the floor if UPL did not win this one.
I know you're a big Eric Comrie fan, so I think he does have
Have you heard yourself on the last show?
He's got a shot. There's 2 of us on here voting, so it could be a flip of the coin between Comrie and UPL. But UPL did incredible this season. I know you were skeptical for a long time. I was always
still am.
Kind of. That is true, and you are going to stick with that, which is fair. I mean, for goalies, it takes a little bit longer to develop. I don't know if we'll say foolishly hopeful for UPL to really take that next step. I don't know if he really showed us enough to prove that he could before this season. And I think skepticism was a good way to go with it. I know in the offseason, a lot of people are saying, including you, I believe, this isn't throwing you under the bus. I think a lot of people are saying to kind of trade him away while his stock
exactly what I was saying.
Exactly. While his stock was kind of high. And, now's the time. Like, go trade him, let somebody else have him, and I'm really glad they stuck with him. I don't know if they even knew what they were doing with 3 active goalies on the roster for most of the season, but good to see UPL not only bounce back really well, but also just take over the crease and prove that he can be a 1A. But Levi at the end of the year also, I mean, with his time in the AHL, actually getting some opportunity to develop like he should have and needed to. I think when he was able to come back up for a few games toward the end of the season, he looked like a much more composed, much just like a developed goalie. I mean, there's no other really way to put it. I mean, when he came back up and relieved UPL for a few games at the end of the season, he looked good and he looked comfortable as an NHL goalie. So just really good to see kind of what the future of the Sabres might have for goaltending, because they've been without one for a very, very long time.
So this next award was by far the most difficult to come up with ideas for. It's the favorite moment of the year. Here are the nominees. The win over New York Islanders on the 14th of March, 4-0 victory, and it was right before the Detroit game, which was probably the biggest letdown of the year. The 9-3 win over Toronto in December. It was right after losing 9-4, the game that Phil was at. The 7-0 victory against the Kings on February 13th, and the season just being over. Last year's winner was Game 79, the shootout winner versus the Rangers to keep them alive and put their name right in contention for their final wildcard spot. But Phil, we really had to reach hard for this one, so I don't think there's a clear and obvious winner. And honestly, I don't really have anything else to say about favorite moments because I really worked hard and we both worked really hard to even find a possible suggestion for this one.
Yeah, the only thing to really say about this one was last year's winner and kind of how far they've fallen in one season.
I think they were eliminated this year in Game 79. So there you go.
I mean, they were in it till the end, kind of, sort of, not really at all.
So the last award here, Give Me More, Give Me More. I will sing that at the award show. It is the one that we need more out of next year, or you just want to see come back from an injury or whatever it could be. This is kind of whatever is in your own little heart here. Jack Quinn, Bo Byram, Devin Levi, UPL, Tage Thompson, and the team. Last year's winner was Jordan Greenway. Phil, I think there are a bunch of nominees here. I think the majority of them here are just because, Jack Quinn, major injuries. Bo Byram, new to the team, coming back. Devin Levi, will he take that next step and be the 1B goalie, or will he be backing up this other guy that at least I want to see him prove it more and again after he gets his contract? Tage Thompson, is this year the letdown year because of the injuries, or is he the player that he was 2 years ago? And then the team in general, will they make that next big step? But a lot of players here, and especially a lot of players when you just named the whole team, but a lot of things that we want to see more out of next year.
Yeah, I think the first few you mentioned are kind of exciting as far as we want more next year. Jack Quinn, like you said, the injuries, but he's shown flashes of how good he can be if he's healthy. So that's exciting. Bo Byram, like you said, needs a full year on the team, so he's exciting. Levi, exciting. UPL, pretty exciting. Tage Thompson, my goodness, please do not be a massive letdown. And hopefully this was just an off year with the injuries. Hopefully he can come back and be that guy we saw last year, not the Tage Thompson of 2 years ago. Hopefully he doesn't just kind of settle in as a what should be top 6 forward instead of a, top line number 1 kind of guy on the team, because they need him to be that guy. So hopefully he can bounce back. And then the team, you did terrible from one year to the next. I know we pick on this team a ton. I think it's just because the expectations and the hope were playoffs, and you did not get there. I know they were kind of in it toward the end, and realistically, they didn't have this, imploding kind of season where they went way under 500. They were last in the league, didn't even come close. Like, they were okay, but when you're that close the season before and just seeing the amount of drop off that a lot of these players had, it's just depressing and overall pretty inexcusable. So we would like the entire team to just get a little bit better.
So stay tuned. We will announce the winners on next Friday's show. On Monday's show, we have to go over the Buffalo Bills draft that is about to kick off right now. It is about 4 minutes to 8. So we will try to wrap this up so we can start watching the NFL draft. But we will move on to the next segment here. Buffalo Bandits versus the Georgia Swarm. Round 1. Winner moves on. Loser goes golfing. Phil, Buffalo comes in as the number 4 seed, 11-7 in the regular season. Georgia, the number 5 seed. We got them 10-8. Now, Buffalo comes in the regular season being first in the league in scoring at 13.17. Georgia coming in tied for 11th at 11 goals. They like the number 11. Goals against, Buffalo did drop below 10 with their 5 goals allowed in their last performance. They're 10th in the league at 11.78. Georgia coming in 5th, 10.95.
Yeah, it looks much, much better being under 12. My goodness, I did not like that number. The 13.7 looks ridiculous. I don't know when, because I'm just thinking about it out loud right now. We're going to go over some of our bold predictions for the season, not playoffs, but I believe, and I do not have it in front of me, but I believe, especially with being number 1 goals per game average, I would assume Buffalo was the number 1 offense in the entire season, as I boldly predicted. So that's exciting, but 13 goals is just a monster number. I know we talk about this a lot where the averages really aren't that far off. Like, 13.17 is great, and you're first, and then all the way down to 11th is just 2 goals behind you. So throughout the entire season on a per game basis, that number, obviously looks a lot bigger, but if you just go in a game by game, it's only 2 goals, which isn't a ton. But overall, I mean, these two teams, the Georgia offense is weird, I guess. I don't know. They're very hot and cold, and it's not an offense that I think is going to be electric or really, really light you up, but they have some players that can absolutely keep this game close and keep it miserable. And then their defense is pretty solid. And Dobson, if he is on, is just a big troublemaker. We will call him that.
So this game has been shown before in Bandit Land, and it happened a few months ago, December 29, 2023. Georgia won 9-8. It was 1-1 after 1. They were down 4-3 at halftime. It was tied 5 going into the fourth quarter. Buffalo went on that 2-goal run to start the fourth, but Georgia would score 4 straight to take it 9-7 right before Nanacoke would score with 22 seconds later. Remember, Ian McKay was the faceoff man. He got that faceoff. That's why we're saying, I don't think you need a faceoff man. Besides the point, Georgia came into this one and was in this one 1 for 4 on the power play. Buffalo was 3 for 4. Faceoffs were 11-10 in favor of Buffalo. Shots were 54-42 in favor of Buffalo. Lyle Thompson had 4 points with 3 goals. Shane Jackson killed them 4-3-7. Q 2-3-5. This is in Dobson stole him the game, making 46 saves. But the offense, Smith had 7 assists, not shocked there. Frazier 2 goals. Byrne went 2-4. Kluch had 2 goals. Nanacoke had 1 goal. I think the offense was spread out how you wished. It's just they could not beat Brett Dobson. And you also have to remember this one. There was no Connor Farrell. There was no Paul Dawson. There was no Zach Belter. There was no Adam Bomberry. There was no Justin Robinson. This team was very, very hurt. Brandon Robinson was still playing out the back door. That's where we were wondering, hey, are they going to give Brandon Robinson some shifts on the forward end? This team is very different from the team that faced Georgia back in December of last year. And yes, I could say last year because it was still 2023, but it's a very different shakeout. And this team's coming in. This was the only time Buffalo was held under double-digit goals. Now, Buffalo is 0-3 when they're scoring 11 or fewer. They're 3-3 when they're scoring 12 or 13 goals, and they're 8-0 when they're scoring 14 or more. So it's definitely a team where you want to get out to Brett Dobson early. He's had a very up and down sophomore year, but when he is on, he is one of the best goalies in the entire league.
Yeah, I'm pulling up his Rochester game because we did watch it to see if we wanted. That was the game that if Georgia lost, the Bandits would get the home field, which they did. So watch that game pretty closely. Dobson, as far as getting out early, obviously it's important. You want to get a early lead no matter what, but he's not the kind of goalie where I don't know. I want to say kind of like a Kells is, where he can have a really good game if he's on the whole game. But I think Dobson, if you get to him early, he's one of those goalies that's really just unfazed, where, yes, it's still great to get to him early. I completely agree. You still want to have an early lead. It is very important. But in the Rochester game, he allowed 7 goals in the first half and only 4 in the second half. So he's a goalie that can correct things. He's a goalie that he's really coming into his own as a goalie in this league and making a name for himself as being one of the better ones out there. And I think it's one of those things where the early lead is really important, but if you get an early lead, don't expect him to just kind of fall over and give up like some goalies kind of do, where they have a bad first half and they just cannot kind of click into place for that game and they just kind of collapse the entire game. He's the kind of goalie where even if you have a good first half, that second half, he's kind of like Matt Vince was a lot last year, where the first half you were like, okay, not the best, but we'll see what he does in the second half. In the second half, he lets in 1, 2, 3 goals the entire second half. So Dobson can do something very similar. So I think it's going to be not only an early lead, but making sure, especially with this team, they don't have those 25, 15, 10 plus minute droughts without a goal. Because if you allow Dobson to really settle in like that and really get, his own confidence going that he's shutting down this team for 15 plus minutes, that's where you're going to start getting into some trouble.
So, Phil, before we dive into the players and all the other aspects of this matchup, let's talk about our next sponsor, Mr. Sizzles.
Mr. Sizzles is currently at 346 Connecticut Street in Buffalo, New York, with 2 new locations opening up pretty soon. They are currently open 7 days a week, 11 to 11, with a new brunch menu on Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3.
So if you have been following them on any of their social media sites, they have brand new gold railings right on their sidewalk. They look brand spanking new because they are, but they're right out front of the store. Looks like the tables are being set up outside with the nice days that are rolling in. It definitely does pop. Phil, we've been mentioning it for a while, but their new menu is dropping on Tuesday the 30th. We got a quick sneak peek at it, and man, did my mouth start watering. It looks absolutely delicious, but they did have another teaser that I can announce this one because, I'm not going to put their whole new menu on blast because I don't think they would be very happy about that, but very delicious. But the teaser that they did put out is the Mr. Biscuits. It's a homemade blueberry biscuit with fresh lemon cream icing, and they are baked fresh daily, 2 in each order. Absolutely delicious, and I really, really, really can't wait for everybody else to see the brand new menu that is coming out again on Tuesday, April 30th.
Yeah, excited for another kind of like dessert menu from them, or menu item from them, especially with the nice summer weather coming. That sounds like a really fresh, kind of delicious dessert after, maybe paired with a milkshake or something like that. Sounds delicious. Cannot wait.
So for anything else, check out their menu on their socials or at MrSizzles.com. Phil, we don't have to go over each player individually. We kind of already did that in December. We ran through a couple of these names. If you don't know these names by now, you've been sitting under a rock. The lefties for Georgia Swarm, Shane Jackson having a very nice year, 30, 53, and 83. Brady Kiernan, he is a rookie coming in. He has a couple numbers, but he's nothing really to be super afraid of, and we're not even sure if he's going to be playing this one. And the other lefty over here is Andrew Q, tied Lyle Thompson for the league, or the team lead, and he played one last game. He is a big threat on the power play for the righties. Brendan Bomberry is kind of like that secondary piece behind Lyle Thompson, who went 42, 45, and 85 or 87. And then Seth Oakes. He is a big-time threat on this team. He is one of those sleeper players, and they said it on the broadcast on last Friday's game. When he scores one, you have to be ready because there's at least one more to follow. He only scores in bunches. He does not just score one in a game. He is definitely a player that keep an eye on besides the Shane Jacksons, the Andrew Q's, and the Lyle Thompsons.
Yeah, I'm excited about this game in a weird way because I know some people are kind of saying, which is true, it's not false, that the Bandits toward the end of the season, which is something we mentioned for a while when they were kind of struggling, that the back end of their season was a little bit easier, right? So their last 4 games, the Wings, the Mammoth, the Roughnecks, the Desert Dogs, not the stiffest of competition out there. So yes, their defense is looking much better and healthier, and Matt Vince is looking much better and healthier, but I think this will be a really, really great, like, true test of where this team and where this defense is, and, in comparison to how they were earlier in the year. Not necessarily against Georgia, because the game they did play against Georgia, they only allowed 9 goals, so really not a bad job there. Wouldn't mind a repeat effort of that, assuming the offense can get it together, but I'm just excited to see how the defense handles a guy like Lyle Thompson and, like you said, Shane Jackson, Bomberry, and Oakes. Like these players are pretty decent, including Q as well out there. Like they have an okay offense. It's not the greatest in the entire league, but it's definitely not bad. And I'm excited to see kind of how the defense handles, especially a true star like Lyle Thompson. I mean, we don't really think we've seen too many of those in the last few games, like someone that can absolutely one-on-one just kind of take over a game.
So defense in transition game, Brian Cole, transition players, 14, 17, and 31. Some of those numbers are with him playing out. I think he is the Ian McKay on this team. I think there's good comparisons there. 85 loose balls, 15 caused turnovers, 7 blocks, 41 shots, 4, and 8 on the power play. So he plays there as well. Jordan McIntosh, the captain of the team, still hurts. I thought Buffalo could have and probably should have made an offer for him. Maybe they did. I have no idea. Liam Barnes. You got Adam Weideman. He's a big-time hitter, not afraid to stand in front of the ball. Jeremy Thompson's their face-off man, 43%. That'll be an interesting face-off battle. TJ Camizio, He is a solid player back there, not putting up the numbers that he did last year, but still a very good player back there. Mike Manley, John Rannigan, he definitely likes to block those shots. And then Jeff Henrik. They have a bunch of bigger name players back there where if you follow the NLL, these names sound familiar to you. It's just, I think the biggest players you want to watch out for are the Brian Coles and the Jordan McIntoshes, so you do not get beat in the transition game. This team does not score a ton of goals, and it's similar to what we said versus Vegas. It's similar to what we said against Calgary. You got to stay out of the box against teams like these, and you cannot let them score in those transition goals. If Georgia's going to beat Buffalo in this one, and if Brett Dobson is not the reason behind it, it's when they're putting up goals on the power play and they're scoring in the transition game. And I know Buffalo has been very good in the transition game this year, defensive wise. You saw it versus Calgary. Calgary didn't put up any transition goals and they're the best in the league. But again, in a win or go home matchup like this, any of those smaller details will come back and could haunt you if you let Georgia, take those pieces from you.
You're also missing one of your, well, potentially, we don't know for sure, so I'm not going to say that we know, but potentially missing Dylan Robinson still with his injury. And he was one of your faster defensive younger players who really, kind of takes out that transition game with his abilities, but also your offense for the Bandits this year has just been doing an absolutely incredible job of hustling back and really canceling out a lot of transition plays themselves. So I think that's been one of the bigger differences between last year and this year. Not that they didn't do it last year, but the willingness and ability for the offense to not only cancel out those transitions by hustling back, but also stay on defense for an entire shift and then, take that next shift off on offense while they rest up after, kind of canceling out that defensive transition. I think that's a really big reason of why that transition has been kind of canceled out so much more this year. It's not necessarily that they're cutting their shot clock early and running off the field on time, which some of it definitely is that, but I think it's just the willingness of the entire offense to hustle back and really just try to stop guys on the transition. But the other thing to notice with their defense is the pretty consistent 17 plus caused turnovers throughout most of their defense, which is a really solid average. And like you mentioned, some of their players also do like to block shots as well. So it is a team that can cause you some problems on defense. I mean, it's one of those things where I know the offense only scored 8 last time, and to me and you, I thought the offense looked really good in that game. Just Dobson was out of his mind, and he was again, I think, in that Rochester game that they ended up losing. He still looked really, really good. So he is definitely their X factor for sure. But until the offense gets shut down, I'm going to continue betting on them to just continue playing really well like they have been for most of the season.
So in net, we've talked a lot about him, and Phil is one of his biggest fans. He definitely wanted Buffalo to draft him a couple years ago, coming out of St. Bonaventure. Brett Dobson, 10-7, 11.18 goals against, 78 save percentage. Once again, I think he's had more of a roller coaster ride for a sophomore year, but the back end of the season, I think he's definitely figured it out. And even if you want to talk about that Rochester game last Friday, 2 of those goals he let in were penalty shot goals from Connor Fields. So you can only take that 11 or 12 number, whatever they scored, I can't remember,
11,
with a grain of salt there. So he is definitely, and he's proven it earlier this year, he can steal games from the Buffalo Bandits if you let him get hot. The Buffalo Bandits have to learn from it. They have to, and I don't even think the offense played bad against him last time they faced him. It was just, he came up massive in this game. So I think this could be a very big, I think the one big change that you'll see on the offensive end, if he does play, is a guy like Brandon Robinson. And that was one of the pieces that I was wondering why they didn't give him some shifts up in the forward group to create some lanes for those lefties when they faced him last time. They lost by 1 goal, and maybe a couple shifts from Brandon Robinson up top could have been the difference. So I think if Buffalo is able to prevail versus Georgia in this one, I think, and this is just my bold prediction here, Brandon Robinson will have a big game, and it might not be on the stat sheet. It might just be setting those hard picks and getting in front of the net.
Yeah, I mean, their last 4 games, I know I'm kind of nitpicking because some of their other games before that, they did okay. I mean, even if you want to go back a little ways here, they've scored 11, 9, 12, 13 in overtime. So we'll say 12, 8, 9, 13, and 10. So their offense just really isn't it's not it. It's not what they're doing to win. They have a couple other 8s, 9s, 9, 7. So it's not an offense that's really going to beat you, but a guy like Brett Dobson has the ability to do that. And we saw that earlier this year when the Bandits lost 9-8 to them. It's not that the defense really let a lot in. It's that the offense could not find a way to beat him. And like we said, that they played pretty well on offense in that game. Dobson was just on his game. And even in that Rochester game that we keep mentioning that just happened, he had an 81 save percentage and in a losing effort. Like, that's a really good save percentage for a goalie in the NLL. So to have that and still lose kind of just shows what their offense kind of lacks. But he's the kind of player that can steal a game, is a little bit nervy to watch. But if this offense continues to look like they have the last few weeks, especially when we've seen them just really pass really well, score from a lot of different angles, everybody's getting involved. Even these last 2 games where Smith and Byrne have both had really great stats, but they really aren't scoring a lot of goals, and that's good to see. The entire secondary scoring has really stepped up the last few games and really spread out over the entire offense, and that's something you want to see from this team, is that everybody's pitching in. So even if the defense focuses in on Smith and Byrne, they'll still get their points. They'll still have great games, but they don't necessarily need to be the focus of the offense for the offense to still put up 14 goals. And I mean, for the Bandits, their last 4 games, 18, 13, 14, 14. So they're looking pretty good on offense, but getting to Dobson is going to be a massive key to this game.
So Phil, give me your prediction for the first round of the Buffalo Bandits playoff run to defend their title.
I do trust Dobson quite a bit, but I do not trust the Georgia offense all that much, especially with the way Vince has been really locked in and the Bandits defense. I'm going to go 11-8.
Low scoring game.
Low scoring game. I mean, I hope it's not. I hope the Bandits just run it, but I think Dobson's just really good.
So if you've been paying close attention to either my articles or behind my head here, that's the graphic that my wonderful wife designed. I got it playing on the TV behind me. I have Buffalo winning 14-9. Yes, that 14 might seem excessive over Brett Dobson, but I'm also factoring in 2 empty netters in this one. So really they only score 12 by him. But yeah, 14-9. I think if Buffalo can get over that 12-13 goal mark, I think they're going to win, because with how great Matt Vince has been playing and how streaky and subpar Georgia's been playing, I think Matt Vince can kind of shut them down and keep them under 10. So as long as you reach double digits and get to around 12 or 13, I think you can wrap this game up and move on to the next round.
Yeah, I think exactly what you said. I have a very similar feeling that if they can get to 10, 11, 12 goals, I trust the Bandits defense and the way Matt Vince is playing to hold Georgia to under that. So I do think that that double digit area is definitely kind of the key to winning and beating this game.
So, Phil, it is the fastest milestone minute playoff edition here. All these possible milestones can be found on X at Buffalo Sports Co. We post them on the lead up to each game. So if you don't want to listen back, you can find them right there, and away we go. Dane Smith is 2 assists away from 100 for his playoff career. He averages 3.92 a game. Ian McKay is 2 loose balls away from 100 for his career. He averages 6.13 a game. Dane Smith is 4 loose balls away from 100 for his career. He averages 3.84 a game. If Dane Smith plays on Saturday, he will move into 4th place in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. If Chase Frazier, Justin Martin, and Matt Vince play, they will all move into 8th place in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. Chase Frazier is 1 goal away from tying Darius Kilgore for 7th in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. He averages 1.38 a game. Tehoka Nanticoke is 2 goals away from tying Darius Kilgore for 7th in Bandits playoff history. He averages 1.75 a game. Chris Cloutier is 1 assist away from tying Darius Kilgore for 5th place in Bandits hit playoff history. He averages 2.22 a game. Kyle Buchanan is 1 assist away from tying Micah Kersey and Rich Kilgore for 7th place in Buffalo Bandits history. or playoff history. He averages 2.08 a game. Tehoka Nanticoke is 2 points away from tying. Rich Kilgore for 9th place in Bandits playoff history. He averages 3.08 a game. Kyle Buchanan is 1 point away from tying Roger Weiss for 10th place in Bandits playoff history. He averages 3 a game, and he is 3 points away from tying Rich Kilgore for 9th place in Bandits playoff history. Nick Weiss is 6 loose balls away from tying Jay Thornberry for 6th place in Bandits playoff history. He averages 4.81 a game. Ian McKay is 9 loose balls away from tying Jay Thornberry for 6th place in Buffalo playoff history. John Tavares is 1 win away from the most playoff wins in Buffalo Bandits playoff coaching history. Dane Smith is 2 goals away from tying Micah Kersey for 8th place in NLL playoff history. He is 3 away from tying Dan Dawson for 7th. He is 4 away from tying John Grant Jr. for 6th, and 5 away from tying Colin Doyle for 5th place. 3 more here. Steve Pearl is 2 caused turnovers away from tying Robert Hope and Zach Courier for 3rd place in NLL playoff history. Dane Smith is 8 assists away from tying Dan Dawson for 2nd in NLL playoff history, and Steve Pearl is 6 loose balls away from tying Brody Merrill for 3rd place in NLL playoff history.
That was a lot. Number 1.
A lot, yep.
Number 2, it's really helpful for all these things when your team goes to multiple championships in a row. It tends to be a good thing for all these records. I mean, these ones are weird records because it all depends on your team, not necessarily the individual, which is what all these individual players love to say. It's all about the team. And it is, because if you don't make playoffs and your team doesn't advance, you cannot move up these ranks very quickly, if at all. I mean, to see Johnny already 1 win away from the most in Bandits history when the Bandits have been a pretty consistent playoff team their entire run and have multiple championships, even in the beginning of their heyday when Johnny was still playing. So just pretty wild to see that he's already moved that far up. And then even Dane Smith just cracking on the door of number 1 in NLL playoff history all time, or at least getting up to number 2. And for a lot of these categories, a lot of it helps when you play a lot of playoff games. And I think that's the main reason Kyle Buchanan came back, is he's 1 point away from being 10th in Bandits history for playoffs. So I think he was like, yeah, I can come back one more season. We'll make playoffs and I'll get 1 point and then I'll be good.
So our last small segment here, we can fly through this real quick. I already gave my score predictions on our article that came out on Thursday, but I want to hear yours real quick. You don't have to go into super detailed. We're trying to keep this right under an hour, and right at it, Phil, right at it. So give me 30 seconds. Number 8 Rochester taking on number 1 Toronto Saturday at 4:30. Who you got winning this one?
Toronto, I really don't trust much of Rochester right now. I mean, they literally had a 3% chance of making playoffs. They've been ridiculously hot and cold, and Toronto is a much steadier team than they are.
Agreed. I have Toronto winning 13-10. Don't think it's going to be very close. Number 7, Panther City going to number 2, San Diego Saturday at 10 p.m. Phil, who you got winning this one?
This one's mildly interesting simply because San Diego has really struggled in the playoffs. And until they get over that, it's going to be, I think this is the year to do it for them. They have a very complete team, but they have for quite a while now. I think playing at home's good. I don't think Panther City is as good as San Diego. So I do have San Diego winning that one, but they've also been a team that just has really struggled in the playoffs. I mean, for a team that's been at the top of the season standings for years now, you have not seen them in the championship, or I believe even in their Western finals all that often. So it's a team that just really struggles in playoffs. So it's interesting to see how that one kind of plays out.
Yeah, once again, if you're looking above my head, there's my score prediction. San Diego 12-8. They finally get out of the first round of the playoffs and take down Panther City. Number 6, Halifax Thunderbirds going to the number 3 Albany Firewolves. The only game on Sunday at 3 p.m. Phil, who you got being the 4th team entering the semifinals of the NLL Finals?
This could be, I don't know, possibly the most interesting game of the entire weekend. Yep. I mean, I think Buffalo and Georgia could be, and I don't want it to be, so I'm not going to say it's going to be. But I think Halifax and Albany are both good teams with, goalies that can put up big numbers. I mean, I don't really trust the Halifax goaltending situation, but Albany has Jameson who can do some things. They have an offense, but they've been struggling at the end of the season here, so I mean, it'll be interesting to see if Albany can, as a young team in the playoffs, can put it together. But to me, I'm going to give it to the veteran savvy Halifax team that to me is just a more complete team still than Albany, despite the way the seeding looks there. I think Halifax will take it.
We have the exact same finals. So if this all does come true, we would have Toronto facing Buffalo in the left side of the bracket, and we would have San Diego taking on Halifax on the right. And again, there is no reseeding, so you're staying on the side of the bracket you are. So even if Georgia upsets Buffalo and Toronto moves on, Toronto is facing the number 5 seed, regardless of Halifax upsets, regardless of Panther City upsets. The 8-1-5-4 are staying on the left side. The 7-2-6-3 are staying on the right side. I know that's been a question for a while. That we've tried to announce that multiple times on this show, even before the season started, but no reseeding whatsoever. So Phil, wrapping this up, NFL draft is carrying on. Caleb Williams went number 1. No shock. Only one pick went through so far. We're right at the hour mark. Phil, anything else to add to the show before we shut it down and head down to Bandit Land for round 1 of the NLL playoffs?
For the Bills draft real quick, I did figure out if they were to sit in their 28th spot. I know everyone will know this while they're listening, but it's about 280 minutes, so over 4.5 hours if the Bills stay put for the 10 minutes per round. And my goodness, this is going to be a long night if they do that. So hopefully, if you're listening to this, they picked a wide receiver. They moved way up in the draft, and I can go to bed early. That is the dream, the wish, and also that the Bandits win. We'll see you all in Bandit Land. Go team.
Yeah, so on Monday, we will go over what Phil just mentioned, the draft that is currently going on right now. They're at pick number 2. We will go over all of the Buffalo Bills selections. Almost made it, Phil. I've gotten a lot better at that. And any possible trades they make, trying to move up, move down, whatever. We'll cover that on the Monday show. And of course, we'll break down Buffalo versus Georgia, good or bad. We will be back on Monday, hopefully for the good. Thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Thank you to Tap That Tap Room and Mr. Sizzles for sponsoring this episode and the show. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Phil's article dropped on Tuesday. Mine dropped on Thursday. Follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us that review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.